Every year on Christmas Eve, the small town of Redwood celebrated with great enthusiasm. Streets were adorned with twinkling lights, children built snowmen, and the central square buzzed with a festive market offering hot cocoa and gingerbread cookies. But beneath this idyllic scene lay a dark legend, one the locals preferred not to speak about. For decades, someone would go missing right before Christmas. Sometimes it was adults, other times children. No one knew where they disappeared to. The only thing tying the cases together was a dirty red hat and a pile of charred coal left near the scene. Jenna was a high school senior working part-time at the Christmas market. Her shift ended late, and she stayed behind to help close the stall. When she stepped onto the empty street, snow was still falling in thick, heavy flakes. The world was eerily quiet. Too quiet. Suddenly, a low hum came from a nearby alley. She turned and saw the silhouette of a man in a Santa suit standing in the shadows. His face was impossible to make out. "Merry Christmas," he croaked. Jenna gave an awkward smile and quickened her pace, but something heavy landed on her shoulder. When she turned, she saw a red Santa hat soaked with something dark and sticky. Her heart began to race. She looked up again, but the Santa figure had vanished. The next day, Jenna was nowhere to be found. As the police began their search, the town's elders started whispering about Bloody Santa. According to the legend, years ago, there was a strange man named Harold who loved Christmas but hated people. He worked in a toy factory and often wandered around town dressed as Santa. But one year, he was falsely accused of kidnapping children. An enraged mob lynched him, burning him alive in his own home. Ever since, Harold returned every Christmas to seek revenge on those who dared to celebrate. He hunted anyone caught outside late at night, dragging them away into the darkness. The police increased patrols, but John, a young officer, didn't believe in ghost stories. On Christmas Eve, he was stationed at the square when he noticed something strange near the carousel. A large figure in a Santa suit stood perfectly still, a sack slung over his shoulder. "Hey, you!" John called out. "The square is closed. Move along." But instead of replying, the figure began walking toward him, slow and deliberate. His footsteps left dark stains in the snow, as if blood was dripping from the sack. John shone his flashlight on the figure. What he saw made his blood run cold. The Santa had a pale, waxy face with empty black eyes. When he smiled, a trickle of red dripped from his mouth. "You've been a bad boy," Santa whispered before lunging at him. The next morning, all that was found at the square was John's gun and a handful of coal. With each disappearance, panic gripped Redwood. On Christmas night, no one dared to step outside. The town was engulfed in an eerie silence, broken only by the faint sound of children laughing, despite every child being safely inside their homes. A young couple, Sarah and Tom, decided to stay home with their 6-year-old son, Ben. They decorated the tree, lit the fireplace, and tried to enjoy the quiet. But when the clock struck midnight, Sarah noticed Ben was no longer in the living room. She frantically searched the house, only to find a red hat lying in the hallway. Dirty footprints marked the window pane, leading outside. In a panic, Sarah and Tom ran out into the snow. In the distance, they saw their son. He was standing next to a massive Santa figure holding his hand. "Let him go!" Tom shouted, but Santa only smiled and threw the boy into his sack. Tom rushed forward, but as soon as he touched Santa, the figure dissolved into a cloud of ash. The sack disappeared as well, leaving behind a pile of coal and a blood-stained toy. Sarah and Tom never found their son. They left Redwood, as did many others. The town slowly emptied, and the legend of Bloody Santa lived on. They say he still returns every Christmas to fill his sack. And if you ever hear the sound of children laughing where there should be none, run. Because that laughter doesn't belong to children. It belongs to him. And he's coming for you.